small intestine. So let's draw that baby. Okay, so let's zoom in on that. Need a couple of pens. I'll need red, and I'll need green, and a highlighter would be a good idea too. And then let's zoom in on this. There you go, like that. Give me the top like that. All right, so this will be 1E. So you know that you have the tube that comes from your mouth that leads to your stomach. What is that tube that comes from your mouth that leads to your stomach? So here's your choppers here. The food comes in, and this tube is connected to the back of your throat, the pharynx. What is this tube that leads to your stomach?
Esophagus.
That is the esophagus. What's the pH in the esophagus?
7.
7. Your entire digestive tract is 7, except in your stomach. All right. So then we arrive in the stomach, and the pH plummets. The pH plummets down to what?
2.
2. Okay. So here's your stomach. And the pH plummets down to 2. Is it the hydrochloric acid that digests the protein in your stomach?
No.
No. Yes, the pepsin. The pepsin is a protease. It digests proteins. Pepsin's optimal pH is 2. Okay, so our ancestors, whoever produced the most acid in their stomach, their pepsin in their stomach was most efficient. Therefore, they had the most efficient digestion, so they were able to eat less often. Thus, they were more evolutionarily fit. We don't sit here and say, oh, gee, if I had more acid in my stomach, I'd be more successful. It's not the way it works, okay? Variation can even be how much HCl, or hydrochloric acid, you produce in your stomach, and then that determines your digestive efficiency. All right, so then food stays in your stomach about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then the material leaves your stomach, okay? And when this material leaves your stomach, it is highly, highly acidic, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Do we want the material in your intestines to be highly acidic? No. Okay, because this is your small intestine, right? And what's the pH in your small intestine?
7.
7. Okay, so from your stomach to about the first 30 centimeters of your small intestine, about this much, right? You have about 30 centimeters to get that pH from 2 all the way up to 7. Okay, so there's a lot of chemistry that happens here. So we're going to put a tube here. So the material that leaves the stomach, this acidic material, is spelled C-H-Y-M-E, but that CH is pronounced like a K. That is pronounced chyme. It's like time with a K, chyme. So the acidic material that leaves your stomach is called chyme, and the pH here is 2, very, very low. And so now this material has a very short distance to get all the way from 2 up to 7. Okay, so here's what happens. The pancreas, in addition to making insulin, the pancreas is an amazing organ, okay? The pancreas, I need to put a tube here. Trapped. Do that in the wrong place. Come on, Miss Flo. Let me channel your artistic ability today, please. This tube goes up here, and we will deal with that tube later, okay? There is a tube here that goes to your pancreas. Pancreas kind of looks like this. This is your pancreas. No E on the end of pancreas, okay? And what your pancreas produces is buffers. So your pancreas produces buffers. What do buffers do?
Neutralize an acid.
They neutralize acid, okay? So your pancreas produces buffers that then dump into this beginning portion of your small intestine and neutralize those acids, okay? Now, one of the things that makes spicy food so delicious is a oil called capsaicin, and capsaicin is highly, highly acidic. So spicy food is acidic. So the buffers then interact with the capsin, and when you neutralize acids, it produces a lot of gas. Could be hydrogen gas, could be carbon dioxide, depends on the acid. Okay, so what happens then is this section of your small intestine. Do you happen to recall the name of the beginning of the small intestine here? That first portion of the small intestine has a very specific name.
Duodenum.
Yes, duodenum. So whether you say duodenum, duodenum, or duodenum, totally up to you. One of the most flexible words in science. So pick one. So duodenum, 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 whatever you want, okay? The duodenum is the first portion of the small intestine. It's not that you have your duodenum, then your small intestine. The duodenum is part of the small intestine. The duodenum is this first 30 centimeters where a ton of chemistry happens, right? However, when we eat a lot of spicy food sits here on the left-hand side in our stomach then empties, right? And as this material starts to come across our abdomen and a lot of chemistry happens here, a lot of gas is produced, then your duodenum will inflate with this gas and you become what's called distended. Have you ever noticed about an hour after you eat really spicy food, you kind of, and you just feel like your belly's all swollen, okay? That's the gas that is produced by the neutralization of the acid in our food. And sometimes that gas will seep back into your stomach and you can belch it out, or you pass it down your intestines and you'll flatulate, you'll fart, whatever. It's spicy food, it's delicious, eat it, okay? Now, there's other things that the pancreas does. The pancreas also releases digestive enzymes. Pancreas is an amazing organ, and not that many people are familiar with everything it does. We talk a lot about the pancreas with glucose and insulin, of course. So the pancreas also produces insulin, helps us maintain our blood glucose. The pancreas produces buffers that neutralizes the chyme, and the pancreas produces, oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. Here I'm talking about, yeah. The word pancreas came out of my mouth, so the word pancreas came out of my hand. What should that say?
Digestive enzymes.
Yeah, it should be digestive enzymes. I was saying that the pancreas produces digestive enzymes, and as soon as I said pancreas, it came out of my hand. So let's try that again. Digestive, hey, there we go. That should be enzymes. Fun. Okay, it's an awesome organ. Pancreas sits right underneath your liver here. So you have your rib cage at the bottom of your ribs. On the left is the stomach. On the right is your liver. Right underneath of your liver is the pancreas. It's about that long. It's a ribbon about that wide. It's a cool little organ.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
if the pancreas doesn't provide enough insulin, does it also not provide enough buffer?
I don't know if those two things are related. That's a really cool question. I don't know.
All right.
We should get a hold of a medical doctor and ask them that if I don't think so, because in the pancreas there's two different specific there's two regions to the pancreas, and the region that produces the buffers and the digestive enzymes, and the region that makes insulin and glucagon, which are hormones. Those are different areas of the pancreas. So I'm going to say I don't think so, but I don't know that for sure. It's a cool question. All right, then we have this other tube that's leading up, okay? We need to talk about the digestion of fat. So there's a tube up here that leads to a little bag, and this bag is then connected to your liver. Any of you eat liver? You guys liver eaters at all? Like liver?
I have.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Yeah, it is delicious. I have a hard time eating it because I know that if the organism has consumed any heavy metals like lead or mercury, guess where they're concentrated? In the liver. So I can't shake the biologist in my head that when I'm eating liver, I'm like, Am I eating mercury? Am I eating lead? It's yummy, but it's a little part of me always kind of worries. All right,
Just
so
extra flavor.
the mercury in your food, Mr. Marquez, is so delicious. Remind me not to eat at your house, brother. All right, so the liver produces a compound. It's a liquid called bile, okay? And bile helps to emulsify fats, which means nothing to you. So let's define that. So bile, and the term is emulsify. Emulsify, or plural, emulsifies lipids. So I could have you guys memorize that it is the bile that does the emulsification, whatever, okay? It emulsifies lipids. What does that mean? If you have a droplet of a lipid and you put bile on it, it makes the lipid do this. So emulsify is a fancy word. What does it mean to emulsify?
To multiply?
Yeah, to actually the opposite. You have the same quantity here.
Break it apart.
Break it apart. Okay, so all bile does is it takes a single lobe, chunk, piece, portion of lipid and breaks it apart. It doesn't digest it. It simply physically separates it. And that's really important. This is not digestion. It's physically breaking apart. So if I take a rock and I hit it with a hammer and I break that rock into pieces, technically I am emulsifying that rock. I'm not digesting it. I am simply breaking it into smaller pieces. Why? Because now I have more surface area for the enzymes to do their work. Okay, all of this stuff comes down to surface area. So bile then concentrates in this bladder. A bladder is simply a bag. That's all it is. Okay, and when you concentrate bile concentrates into a compound called gall. So gall is simply concentrated bile. So the bladder that contains gall is called the
Gallbladder.
gallbladder. Okay, so this sits right under your liver and actually on top of your pancreas. And whenever you eat a high fat diet, okay, then the gall will be released and diluted back into bile. And then the bile flows down and joins the same duct that the pancreatic juices are flowing through. And then all of this gets dumped into the duodenum and just tons and tons and tons of chemistry happens here, okay? Digestion starts here. 3 things start in the duodenum. You neutralize the chyme from a pH of 2 up to a pH of 7. You then emulsify your fats, and you then start all forms of macromolecule digestion that then continues throughout the intestines, because then the wall of the intestines produces digestive enzymes also. So, hey, is there just a little bit going on in the first 30 centimeters of your small intestine? Holy cow, yeah. Okay. IB likes to ask this question. Sometimes they provide you with the diagram, sometimes you draw it. Okay, and it's just a matter of practice, right? As this tube goes by, it's liver, gallbladder, and then they join the same duct. This is just a tube, and out of the pancreas are buffers and digestive enzymes. And that's 1E.
Mr. Manon,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. So you said the gallbladder concentrates the bile into gall, but then
Correct.
dilutes it back into bile.
Correct.
What is that?
Was there a question there?
Oh yeah. Why is it that it dilutes it back into bile?
Oh, because the gall is thick. It's almost, I'll say, syrupy. It has a high viscosity, and so it doesn't flow well. Okay, so by diluting the gall back into bile, it flows much, much easier. In fact, If the gall gets too concentrated here, it'll crystallize and form stones, and those are called gallstones. Sometimes and they look like little rocks. They're fascinating. And the rocks can sometimes get stuck. If a rock, one of these gallstones, gets stuck there, and the gallbladder cannot drain, then the gallbladder will become inflamed, and you have to have it taken out. Because if it ruptures, then you'll start digesting yourself from the inside out. Really painful way to go. My mom had her gallbladder out when I was about 10, and it was like a weekend procedure. Of course, that was also a long time ago. She had to make a mild modification to her diet, and she just can't eat really dense fat. She had to moderate her diet, but it's no big deal. It's just the gallbladder. You have to address it, but it's not like life-threatening. Cool? May I take this? Okay. Yeah. Now we get to draw the heart. Okay. Now, what you have to understand about the heart is when you first see the heart, it looks like this. And when students first see the heart, guess the only thing that they see is what? When you first see that. That looks simple.
No, it's about arrows.
Yeah, all you see is a bunch of this, right? All you see is a bunch of arrows, okay? And there's a reason why. The bottom half of the heart, the tubes fold. Okay, so the tubes come out the top. The tubes from the bottom part of the heart actually fold back up, and that's what gives your heart this kind of shape, okay? So when I don't start here, okay? Because there's way too many arrows, there's way too much going on. So I'm going to draw you a simplified version of the heart so that you can understand the structure of the heart. However, will you ever draw this diagram on the IB exam? Ever? No, okay? But this will be really, really helpful to you understanding the structure of the four-chambered mammalian heart. Boom. And then this comes in, and then boom, boom, and this comes out.
Do you want us to draw this in core?
Most definitely. Because all too often what happens is when you first see that heart diagram of what the mammalian heart really looks like, you just see a bunch of arrows, and that's useless to you. And then valve, 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 valve. Ta-da! That's a heart. So you have a blood vessel, chamber, valve. Chamber, valve, blood vessel. Blood vessel, chamber, valve. Chamber, valve, blood vessel. That's it. So shall we start labeling this? You have it?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So this blood is coming from somatic cells. What are somatic cells?
Cells.
Pardon?
Body cells.
Body cells, okay? So the blood is coming back from the body, okay? Blood is coming back from the body through a type of blood vessel called the vena cava. Some of your professors will call it a vena cava. Okay, it's just a vein. Veins always bring blood back to the heart, okay? And what's cool is this is the right-hand side of the heart. You go, Manro, I might not be, all that good with the heart biology, but I know my right from my left. And get a load of this. This is the right side of your heart. This is the left side of your heart. And this is the way all heart diagrams are. Why? Why is this backwards?
Because when you're looking at a person, their right and left is opposite.
is my right, and this is my left. And if you're a heart surgeon and you crack open my chest, right, this is my right, and this is my left. And we want the diagram that you've been studying in medical school to match what you see when you crack open my chest. Okay? So they intentionally draw this for exactly what you just said. Ms. Diaz is spot on. They draw these so that what the surgeon sees on paper, what she sees, is what she'll see when you crack open my rib cage and you see the heart. Okay? So this blood enters the right side of the heart. Okay? So this is a right-hand chamber, and this is a right-hand chamber. This is the right-hand side of the heart. The two chambers on top have the same name. Chambers on top, the singular name is atrium. The plural name is atria. Okay, so this is the right atrium. So this blood enters the right atrium, this valve is closed, and this chamber fills, right? Once this chamber is full, then this valve opens, your right atrium contracts, the blood then flows through that valve into the lower chamber that's called a ventricle. Again, the right ventricle, because we're looking into the chest of the patient. But there's a valve here, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
That valve has a cool name. It's called the atrioventricular valve, okay? It's called the atrioventricular valve, like such. Now, do you think we really call it the atrioventricular valve? Do you think we say that all the time? No. What do you
No.
think we say instead? We say the AV valve. Nobody says atrioventricular valve. Okay, it's the AV valve. Okay, why is this valve called the atrioventricular valve? Because this valve is located between what?
The atrium and the ventricle.
The atrium and the ventricle. Okay, it's the AV valve. Cool. So when this chamber contracts, this valve opens, this valve closes, and then this chamber fills. Now the bottom part of the heart contracts. This valve then opens. This valve is called a oops, how about an S? There we go. This is called a semi-lunar valve. That's an N. Let me fix that. That's an N, semi-lunar valve. And the blood then leaves the heart. Since the blood is leaving the heart, well, this is what kind of blood vessel? Since it's leaving the heart, it's going away from the heart.
A vein. Ventricle.
Veins bring blood back to the heart. This is going away. It's called an artery. Okay, that's the difference between an artery and a vein. Okay, a vein brings blood back to the heart. Here, vein brings blood back to the heart. Arteries take blood away. Always. Okay. So this blood is coming back from the somatic cells. What is the oxygen concentration in this blood if you're coming back from the somatic cells?
Very low, none.
It's low. You bet. This is oxygen poor blood. So oxygen poor blood here, oxygen poor blood here, oxygen poor blood here, oxygen poor blood here. Where would you then be sending oxygen poor blood? Where should you send that?
Lungs.
The lungs. Okay? This is the classic example where I don't want you to memorize. Do not memorize, that's where the blood goes to the lungs. You're missing the point, okay? I want you to think, okay? I want you to think, if the blood is coming back from the somatic cells, these cells pulled out a lot, not all, a lot of the oxygen. Therefore, this is oxygen poor. Oxygen poor, oxygen poor, oxygen poor, oxygen poor. Therefore, oxygen poor blood goes to the lungs. Okay? All right. Have you ever heard of something called CPR? Someone's heart stops. you should do CPR, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
What does each letter stand for? C is for
Cardio.
cardio, okay? This is why you put your hands on their chest and you do chest compressions. You only do this to someone whose heart has stopped, and you are physically compressing the chest, literally squeezing the blood out of the heart, okay? Now, depending on your training, you may have been trained to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. That's the P, which stands for?
Pressure. I don't know.
How about pulmonary? CPR stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Yeah. Okay. So cardio is the root for heart. What do you think pulmonary is the root for?
Lung.
Lungs. And you're like, Manro, why are you telling us about CPR? Because you now know that pulmonary is the root for lungs, yes?
Yes.
So which artery is that?
Pulmonary artery.
The pulmonary artery. Why? Why is that the pulmonary artery?
Because it's taking blood away from the heart and to the lungs.
To the lungs. Exactly right. Again, don't memorize, understand. Understand that this is an artery, so it's carrying blood away from the lungs. It's oxygen poor blood. Therefore, this blood is headed to the lungs. Well, anything that has to do with the lungs is therefore pulmonary. Therefore, this is the pulmonary artery. Think your way through the heart. If you try to memorize this, it takes so much longer. Understand where the blood came from and where it's going to. So if you have the opportunity, I would add some color to this. Because what do you notice about the oxygen concentration in the right-hand side of the heart? It's all oxygen poor. Okay, so now I'm going to come down here. What color? It looks like purple, but it's probably not. I'm working with blue violet this morning. Ooh, look at me. And this is oxygen poor. Okay. All right, so this goes to the lungs, gets oxygenated. Go to the other side. The blood comes back. Okay. This blood is now coming from where? Considering where it left to, now it comes back from the lungs. Well, if blood is coming from the lungs, oxygen rich, oxygen poor.
Rich.
Rich, okay? This blood vessel is carrying blood back to the heart. Since it's carrying blood to the heart, what kind of blood vessel is that?
Vein.
It's a vein. This blood vessel is bringing blood from the lungs, so which vein is that? That's coming from it's the pulmonary vein. Again, understand why that's called the pulmonary vein. That's called the pulmonary vein because it's coming back from the lungs, and it's a vein because the blood is going to the heart. All right. So oxygen-rich blood comes from the lungs through the pulmonary vein and enters the what?
Left atrium.
Nice. The left atrium. Okay. This oxygen-rich blood pools in the left atrium because this valve is closed. Which valve is closed?
AV.
The AV valve. Okay. Once this chamber is full, the whole top half of the heart contracts. Okay. So your heart doesn't beat left, right, left, right. Your heart beats top, bottom, boom, 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 like this. And I'll post animations. We have a lot of things to watch. All right. The blood then leaves the left atrium as the AV valve opens, and this oxygen-rich blood flows into the
Left ventricle.
left ventricle. Nice. The left ventricle fills because this valve is closed. Which valve is this?
The semilunar valve.
Semilunar valve. When the time comes, the AV valve closes, the semilunar valve opens, the oxygen-rich blood is then driven through the semilunar valve out of an enormous artery called the aorta. This is a huge artery. So much so that actually sits on top of our hearts and is this large arch, and so they call it the aortic arch. You'll see. And then we should take this, let's zoom out, and the entire left-hand side of the heart, all of this contains what kind of blood?
Oxygen rich.
Oxygen rich. Of course, this is oxygen rich because it came back from the lungs. Where would you send oxygen rich blood?
Somatic cells.
To the somatic cells. Excellent. Again, think your way through this diagram. Don't memorize. And then once the blood goes out to the somatic cells, guess what? It comes back here. So the blood goes right lungs, left body, right lungs, left body, back and forth, back and forth. And that's the heart diagram, okay? However, would you ever draw this on the IB exam, ever?
No.
No, because what actually happens is these two blood vessels here, right? Ready? They fold back up. So these two fold back up, which is why, you see how this is coming out? This actually folds back up. That's why this looks like it bends back and then goes out the top, and it bends back and goes out the top. The two tubes that we drew here fold back and go back out the top. Okay, we will label this on Monday. I need to get you comfortable here first. Once you're comfortable there and you understand where's it coming from, where's it going to, where's it coming from, where's it going to. Once you're comfortable with this, what's called the cardiac cycle of body, right, lungs, left, body, just here and here and then here. Once you're comfortable here, then this diagram gets a lot easier. Okay. So I need to add a different color on the bottom here. Again, if you're able to shade this in color, fine. If you're not, that's totally cool. Use pen or pencil. Use horizontal stripes or vertical stripes. Use whatever it takes for you to know the difference between the oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor sides. All righty, one last thing. If the blood is oxygen-poor, what is the carbon dioxide content?
High?
Yes, it's rich, you bet. Whereas if it's oxygen rich, it is CO2
Poor.
poor. Boom, just like that. And that is a really good place to stop. I will not see you guys in class for Monday, of course, because Monday's a 1-3-5. I will see you at 3 o'clock, or if you can get there about 2:50, 2:55, so Kim can start at 3. And then we'll spend about an hour talking to Kim Gonzalez and learning from her experiences and her perspective. She's super chill, super nice, like Kim a lot. Right on? Sweet. Have a good Friday. Have a good weekend. The air quality is nice. We can open our windows and doors again. It's awesome. All righty, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Bye. Have a nice day.